I don't care what it is you want to obtain, whether it's a job, whether it's having children, whether it's the relationship, whether it's taking a Pilates class, whatever it is, the hardest thing to do out of all of that is to start, is to begin the journey. Same with stand-up comedy for me. Writing the 5 minutes wasn't as hard as having to go out there and perform it, but I had to start. And that's what you have to do. Just start.
Coffee Talk.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Cannistraci. If you are listening to this podcast, also watch me on YouTube. But if you're watching this YouTube podcast, you could also listen to me on Spotify. If you're only listening, I'm going to describe to you my outfit right now because I don't know if I could properly be repping the Bronx and being Italian any harder. I have my Bronx Zoo sweatpants on with my gnocchi hardcore Italian shirt. And I have my cup of coffee in hand. Hope you guys had a great start to your day or a great day, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast. I wanted to talk to you guys about something today, about it never being too late to start. So what am I talking about? I was watching the Emmys a few weeks back, and I saw someone give a speech about how they were at the bottom of the bottom. It was actually the actor. I want to get his name right. I think it's like Michael Gadd or something. The actor from Baby Reindeer, who had a serious story, a terrible tragedy happened to him. He was raped and abused and was at the lowest of his low. And talk about making a comeback, but writing about it and creating a whole show around it. I hope I'm not killing the show for anybody who hasn't seen it. I just realized that. But it really got me thinking about a lot of things, because I know I've talked about things like taking a leap of faith and taking a chance on yourself. But I think the hardest thing to do, and if you're listening to this on a Monday morning, is to start. Start anything that you want. It's just that starting is the hardest part. And for me, I'll never forget, I wanted to do comedy so bad. I mean, I loved it growing up. I remember seeing Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball. Granted, not stand-up comics, but comedians in their own right with their physicality and their timing. And I was always drawn to it. Even shows like Saturday Night Live, my mother said I would be like negotiating with her on Saturday nights so I could stay up to watch whatever host was going to be on. That was way before the internet too. So I knew my stuff ahead of time. I knew who the host was, what shows or what their upcoming projects were. So I was always drawn to it. But I don't think I ever looked at comedy as a way of life or a career. And I did like acting, and I did do some of that in stage and off-Broadway in my 20s. But I was always fascinated by stand-up comedy. And things like that, you don't realize. You kind of know from a young age really what it is you want to do. And I'll never forget watching this show the first year it came out. It was called Last Comic Standing. And I lived for this show. It came on once a week. It was a competition for stand-up comics, and I loved it. And I was like so impressed by the bravery of these people getting up there and how funny they were and how smart it was, in my opinion. Couldn't wait for the next season to come out. And then all of a sudden, I was getting uncomfortable watching it. Now, anybody who knows me personally, and I think you guys have a good sense of who I am, some of you practically know me personally now between this podcast and everything else that I do. I love to champion other people. I love to watch people in their element. I love to support, especially my friends and family, when they want to do something in their next venture. So watching a show where people are pursuing their dream and competing, for a position would normally be something I would be cheering on. And instead I was getting uncomfortable watching it. And I realized it was because I had wanted to do it and never tried it. I never started. I never attempted. And it was a really hard realization, because I realized it was almost changing my character, right? I was almost not as happy for these people on TV as I should be, almost envious. And that is not a character trait I carry often. So It was kind of a wake-up call for me, which is a good thing. When we get those moments of being uncomfortable or not liking the way we feel or not liking the way we're acting, that's not a bad thing. That's a time for us to go, oh, hold up. Something's happening right now. I'm having an adverse reaction. I'm not comfortable with this. What's the next thing? What do I have to do to change it? And that is starting something, a task, a class, signing up for a dating app, whatever it is that you want or that you don't have that you want to obtain has to start somewhere. And that's not easy. Obviously, if it was easy, everybody would be living their dream and nobody would be fighting, right? Everybody would just be happy and content in whatever lives they were living. And I didn't know where to start or how to start. But I wrote 5 minutes of what I thought would be funny on a stage, which was almost the easy part. Because then I had to go on a stage and tell these jokes that I had written. I had to perform them, really. And I'll never forget, I had this time capsule with friends that we had opened up, throughout the years, or we wrote after 5 years or after, 6 years, we would go back and look. And one of my first things that I said I always wanted to try in this time capsule was stand-up comedy. And I looked at the date of it and I said, God, this was years ago. Why didn't I do it then? Right? It's too late now. That's how I felt 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I can tell you I felt like it was too late for me. And I remember thinking, well, I missed it. Well, that's it. And then I sat with myself for a while in my feelings and feeling sorry for myself. I will tell you that I did that. And then I thought, well, in 10 years, I'm going to say to myself, man, I wish I started then. So I put my big girl pants on. I took that 5 minutes. I performed in a stand-up comedy club. I got that first laugh, which beginner's luck. I believe in something called beginner's luck. Beginner's luck is like a little gift from a higher power that is like you're on your path. I'm going to give you this little taste of it, right? So you feel it. And then I continued to struggle for like 5 years. So that first laugh got me hooked, but it wasn't all laughs after. I remember getting that first laugh and being like, this is it. I'm meant to do this. This is amazing. I found it, right? I'm doing it. It's so easy. No, it was so hard. So you get that little taste, you get that little bit of luck, and then you have to work. And I got to be honest, I've had some pretty horrible shows in my 11 years. Have they been a ton of horrible shows? No. But I've had some shows where the next morning I have woken up and said, I want to quit comedy. And even in that moment where I have to get back out there after being rejected either by an audience, another comic, a comedy club, that is still easier to get up after defeat than it was to start. Technically took me 33 years to start. Doesn't make a difference if I dabbled it in my 20s, because I did. I dabbled with it a little bit when I was doing off-Broadway. I remember I opened up a show. The producer said to me, you always wanted to try stand-up. Why don't you warm up the crowd for 5 minutes? And I was like, great. I wrote 5 minutes. I warmed up the crowd. Everybody laughed. Let me tell you something. He had to push me on stage those first few shows. That was the hardest thing I ever did. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it. He's like, no. I put you in the bill. Like you says you're opening up the show. I'm like, no, I can't. He's like, no, you have to. They would literally have to push me on stage every night for the run of that show. And that was my first taste at stand-up comedy. And I did love it, but surprisingly enough, from that 5 minutes, a funny story that I don't often talk about, from that 5 minutes, there happened to be a scoreboard member in the audience from the New York Yankees who saw me perform that 5 minutes and said, wow, this girl is New York as they come with this accent, She can speak well. She's talking in front of an audience. And that ultimately led me to my job as the scoreboard host for the New York Yankees for the next 4 years. I actually opened up Yankee Stadium in 2009 because of those 5 minutes. Not because of the acting I did in that performance for the play. It was for the 5 minutes that they put me out first for me to warm up because I started. And one thing led to the next, and I didn't do comedy again I suppressed it again and said, okay, that was fun. That's not a real job, right? I think a lot of times we have these ideas of what we want to do and we don't consider them real jobs or real goals or real things we could obtain. Yeah, you can. The relationship, the role in your life you want to play, if it's as a parent, the job, things are out there for our taking. We have to work towards them. And you have to start. So it's a Monday. I figured I would give you a little Monday motivation. I don't know if it's something you've thought about, something you've always wanted to try. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be as serious as having a kid or getting married or having a job. It could be, I always wanted to, walk a tightrope or, take a Pilates class or anything. If there's something you really want to do, you should do it. And in my next episode, I do want to talk to you guys about something about not focusing on goals so much and maybe focusing more on systems. But the way to do it is to start. So happy Monday morning, everybody. Thank you for having a cup of coffee with me. I hope you've been inspired by today's podcast. I know I talk about a lot of different things, but I kind of wanted to share with you how I started and how hard I know it is, but I believe in you. Have a great day.
Coffee Talk.